Segment. PW Photos. Prince William's silence over the past year was never passive. It was strategic. As public speculation churned and media narratives spun in conflicting directions, William watched, waited, and eventually decided the risk was no longer acceptable. With his father's health in decline and Meghan's presence continuing to stir division across the Atlantic, William led the call for definition. If you love getting the real story behind the palace walls, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and tap the notification bell so you never miss an update. The resulting announcement from the palace wasn't just a rejection, it was a controlled dismantling of lingering hopes, underscoring that sentiment alone can't dictate royal protocol. For William, the future of the crown demanded a clean break, not a symbolic return. Segment. Photos. The message resonates far beyond palace walls. Clarity, even when painful, is essential to legacy. By choosing finality, the monarchy signals that institutional coherence must outweigh unresolved emotional narratives. Meghan's next chapter may well flourish outside royal structures, but inside the monarchy, the conversation is closed. This isn't about blame, it's about governance, perception, and survival. The royal family has taken a definitive step away from ambiguity, making it clear that tradition won't bend for comfort, even under global scrutiny. The palace didn't whisper this one into the background. If you love getting the real story behind the palace walls, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and tap the notification bell so you never miss an update. They announced it, loudly, directly, and without any wiggle room. Meghan Markle will not be returning to the British royal family, now or ever. No roles, no patronages, no comeback. It's over. Segment. UKIF Photos. This wasn't a minor policy tweak. This was a shut-the-door-and-bolt-it-from-the-inside kind of decision, a declaration that left no room for interpretation. And it's not just personal, it's institutional, a move designed to protect the core of the monarchy at a moment when it's more fragile than it wants anyone to see. Behind the scenes, this decision had been building for months. There were private meetings, internal reviews, and strategy sessions that weighed every angle. This wasn't about reacting to headlines. It was about preventing the next ones. Because a royal family isn't just a family, it's a machine. And that machine runs on tradition, hierarchy, and public control. So when King Charles became ill and stepped back from the front lines, the need for clarity became urgent. The last thing the palace wanted was to operate in a gray area, especially with someone like Meghan, whose public presence still carries massive global weight. Any sign of openness or flexibility risked confusion. And confusion, in times of crisis, looks like weakness. William and Princess stepped forward, not with emotion, but with strategy. They understood the cost of ambiguity. They understood that if the monarchy wanted to survive in this era of viral narratives and constant media churn, it had to draw its lines clearly. Meghan's image, still powerful, still polarizing, had become too much of a liability. So the palace didn't just sideline her. They ruled her out completely. No future roles. No symbolic gestures. No honorary acknowledgments. This wasn't a soft break. It was a strategic shutdown. And the timing wasn't accidental. With King Charles's health creating a leadership vacuum, the stakes were higher than ever. The public needed to see a monarchy in control. The institution needed to speak with one voice. Any remaining openness about Meghan's potential involvement risked undermining that image. From their perspective, this wasn't about punishment. It was about preservation. Segment. PH Photos. But preservation comes with a price. And that price is clarity. Brutal, final clarity. For Meghan, the message is unmistakable. There is no place for you here. Not now. Not eventually. Not even as a symbolic figure. The door that once might have cracked open for reconciliation has been slammed shut. For Harry, that clarity carries its own weight. Because this decision affects more than just his wife, it reshapes the landscape of his own identity within the family. The path back, even in the abstract, no longer exists. Whatever distance was once manageable has now become permanent. Segment. UKIF Photos, and that permanence is a point. The monarchy has always thrived on control, of image, of narrative, of access. Meghan disrupted that model simply by existing outside of it. And once she began to speak, once she took her story directly to the world, that disruption became unmanageable. The palace doesn't operate in public confessionals. It doesn't give interviews. It doesn't explain. It just acts. Quietly, often indirectly. But this time, they spelled it out. And that alone is significant, because it shows just how far things had gone. That the palace, known for its refusal to feed the media cycle, felt it had no choice but to end the guessing game and make its position public. The message was directed at more than just Meghan. It was aimed at the global audience still asking, what if? What if the Queen had lived longer? What if Charles had pushed for unity? What if there was still a path to reconciliation? Now we know. There isn't. And let's not downplay the cultural undercurrent here. This wasn't just about one person. It was about what she represented. Meghan brought a very American energy into a deeply British institution. Where the monarchy demands silence, she spoke. Where it values restraint, she expressed. Where it operates in code, she opted for clarity. To some, that was threatening. To others, it was refreshing. But either way, it was unsustainable. The differences in cultural values were too wide. Britain's royal tradition leans into heritage, continuity, and stoicism. America, in contrast, champions individualism and openness. When Meghan tried to live between those two worlds, it exposed how incompatible they really were. That's why this decision isn't just a family matter, it's a cultural signal. And it was received, loud and clear. In the UK, the reaction split across generational lines. Older citizens saw the announcement as a relief. Finally, a conclusion to years of messiness. To them, the monarchy had drawn a line in the sand and stood by it. Enough of the drama, enough of the division. But younger voices weren't so sure. Many saw the decision as yet another sign that the monarchy is unwilling to adapt, that it refuses to make space for anyone who doesn't fit the old mold. The palace, in choosing clarity, may have also chosen to alienate us. In the U.S., the divide widened. There, Meghan has been framed as a woman who walked away from an institution that didn't see her, a figure who stood for independence, privacy, and the right to speak freely. For her supporters, this announcement just confirmed what they believed all along, that she was never truly accepted and never would be. The palace knew that, and they went forward anyway, because for them, it was bigger than public opinion. It was about institutional stability, and their analysis, based on media trends, public sentiment, and internal assessments, pointed to one conclusion. The longer the ambiguity around Meghan persisted, the more the monarchy's core values came under threat. So they removed the uncertainty. This was not a move of cruelty. It was a move of calculus. Now, the monarchy gets its clarity. The chaos of speculation is replaced by the order of finality. There will be no sources close to the palace teasing the possibility of a reunion. No rehashing of whether she'll attend future royal events. It's done. That kind of finality is rare in institutions that survive by being vague. But in this case, it was necessary. And for Meghan, it means freedom of a different kind. She's no longer tethered to an identity that exists in conflict. There's no need to navigate a system that wasn't built for her. Her future is wide open, not because the door has been opened, but because the one behind her has closed. Segment, UKRF photos. That closing allows for something else, reinvention. Not just for Meghan and Harry, but for the monarchy itself. In drawing this line, the royals have chosen their direction, one rooted in boundaries, one that prioritizes the institution over the individual. Whether that's enough to secure its future is another question. But the decision, painful as it may be, reflects a truth about modern leadership. Clarity is sometimes the only way forward, even when it hurts, especially when it hurts. So here we are, a final statement, a family divided, and an institution that, for better or worse, has spoken with absolute certainty. Segment, UKI photos. Let us know how you see it. Was this the right move for the palace? Should there have been a different path? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Share this video if you've been following the royal fallout from the start. And don't forget to hit subscribe so you don't miss what comes next. Because one thing's for sure, the story isn't over. It's just moved into a new chapter. When the royal palace released its decision, they didn't mince words. There was no careful softening, no language of temporary distance or potential reconciliation. It was final, it was clear, and it was intentional. Meghan Markle is officially out. Not just out of the current picture, out of any future within the British royal family. Her chapter in the monarchy is closed, not with a quiet fade into the background, but with a firm, public closure. No patronages, no return to duties, no ceremonial roles. Nothing. This is a moment that crystallizes years of tension, speculation, and silent standoffs into a single, defining move. A monarchy that famously operates behind palace walls has stepped into the spotlight just long enough to slam a door shut. And the timing? Not coincidental. Segment. PW Photos. King Charles' health had become a looming shadow over everything. As he steps back from his official duties, the institution is more vulnerable than it has been in decades. When the monarch is weakened, every decision becomes magnified. Every uncertainty feels like a threat. And Meghan, with her global platform, her explosive media history, and her continued influence in the public conversation, represented one thing the royal family could no longer afford: ambiguity. And that's exactly what this move aims to eliminate. This wasn't reactive. It was a result of months of internal debate and strategic discussion. The palace had grown weary of the narrative loop. Stories speculating about Meghan's return, about her potential to rejoin the fold in some symbolic capacity, about the ongoing will-they-won't-they dynamic between the Sussexes and the Crown. That narrative wasn't just distracting. It was destabilizing. Figures like Prince William and Princess and reportedly played key roles in putting an end to it. And their logic wasn't about personal feelings. It was about institutional protection. In a modern media environment where one misstep can dominate global headlines for weeks, the monarchy needed one thing more than ever: clarity. Meghan's presence in the grey zone made that impossible. So the grey zone is gone. What's left is an unmistakable message. The royal family is closing ranks. It's a decision rooted in control. And the palace want to remind the world that it still has control, even in the face of illness, media pressure, and shifting cultural tides. This wasn't just about Meghan. It was about showing that the monarchy still knows how to protect itself, even if that protection comes at the cost of public backlash. And backlash, of course, came instantly. In the UK, reaction split, predictably, along generational lines. For older citizens, this was a welcome moment of closure, a way to end the ongoing drama and preserve the image of an institution they still deeply respect. For many, the decision felt overdue, a way to finally move on from a chapter that's been dragging on for too long. But among younger Britons, the tone was more conflicted. Some saw it as a rejection not just of Meghan, but of everything she represented: change, diversity, modernization. For them, this was proof that the monarchy still can't evolve, that it still functions on the same rigid expectations that drove Harry and Meghan away in the first place. And across the Atlantic, in the United States, the reaction was even more charged. There, Meghan's story has long been framed through a different lens, one of independence, resistance, and self-liberation. Many Americans saw the palace's announcement not as a neutral decision, but as a calculated rejection, a confirmation that Meghan was never truly welcomed and never truly forgiven for walking away. But the palace wasn't trying to win over the American public. This move was about preserving the monarchy's internal logic. And to do that, they had to set boundaries that left no room for interpretation. Segment. PH Photos. This isn't the kind of decision the palace makes lightly. It carries emotional weight, especially for those still inside the royal family. Reports suggest the atmosphere behind palace doors was a mix of strategic resolve and quiet sadness. Because while the firm move was necessary in their eyes, it also marked a definitive loss of any potential unity. Harry and Meghan, from their side, are likely feeling what they felt for years: alienation. But now, it's no longer an informal estrangement. It's formal, public, institutional, and permanent. The monarchy, in effect, chose structure over sentiment. And for Harry, that's not just political, it's deeply personal. This moment doesn't just redefine Meghan's role. It resets the entire narrative. For years, the speculation about her royal future served as a kind of ongoing distraction, a question mark that hung over every family appearance, every news cycle, every event. That speculation is now over. There's no coming back, no carefully curated reconciliation, no hybrid roles or softened titles. It's clean, it's final, and it's ruthless. But that in the palace's eyes, is the only way to survive the modern age. Because here's the truth. The monarchy has always depended on a kind of unspoken understanding. A system where roles are clearly defined, and members play those roles without deviation. Meghan broke that. She left the script. She told her side of the story, and she kept telling it. In a world of viral interviews and constant digital commentary, the palace realized it couldn't afford to leave that story open-ended, so they ended it themselves. This also exposes the ongoing cultural disconnect between Britain and America. Where the UK sees protocol, the US sees restriction. Where the monarchy sees duty, Americans often see dysfunction. These two cultural lenses made Meghan's position inside the family almost impossible from the start. And in many ways, she became the symbolic battleground between these opposing values. But now, the battle is over. The palace has chosen to retreat to tradition, to tighten its definition of who counts, who stays, and who gets to represent the crown. It's not just about Meghan. It's about drawing a line to survive the storm. Internally, that line offers a kind of relief. Without ambiguity, the family can focus on its next steps, on stabilizing the image of the monarchy during Charles's illness, on elevating William and Kate as a face of the future, and on limiting the media chaos that Meghan's name inevitably brings. Externally, though, it's a gamble, because in choosing clarity, the palace risks alienating not just Meghan's supporters, but a generation of people who saw her as a sign that the monarchy could change, that it could reflect a broader, more inclusive image of Britain. That hope now feels extinguished. The monarchy may have preserved its structure, but it lost the one person who symbolized the possibility of true transformation. Still, from the palace's point of view, transformation was never the goal. Continuity was. And when forced to choose between the two, they chose the one they've always chosen. So what does this mean moving forward? For Meghan, it's freedom with finality. She no longer has to navigate the minefield of royal expectation. There are no more ambiguous ties to manage, no more speculation to fuel or deny. Her path is now completely her own. For Harry, the emotional toll is harder to gauge. This decision likely deepens the distance between him and his family, maybe permanently. Because once a decision like this is made, it's almost impossible to undo. And for the royal family, the message is clear. Boundaries matter more than sentiment. In times of crisis, control wins, even if it costs them the chance to evolve. The past can't be rewritten, but the future, at least, can now be approached without the weight of uncertainty. The door is closed, the lines are drawn, and the monarchy is moving forward on its own terms. There's something haunting about the sound of finality, especially when it echoes through a palace that has, for centuries, built its power on the illusion of permanence. But make no mistake, the announcement about Meghan wasn't a passing update. It was a statement of record, a royal reset designed to shut down years of narrative chaos in a single, surgically delivered blow. And the most jarring part? It wasn't delivered with drama. It was quiet, cold, and unmistakably calculated. This is the crown protecting itself, closing ranks, preserving what remains of the royal brand in an era where every misstep becomes a headline and every moment is framed by global commentary. Meghan wasn't just a duchess. She became a symbol of something much bigger, a symbol the monarchy no longer wanted to be associated with. Let's be honest. This wasn't just about an individual who chose to step away. It was about what that choice exposed. Meghan leaving the royal family wasn't a shock. What shook the institution was everything that came after. The interviews, the docuseries, the constant buzz of her existence outside the palace walls. And what made it worse, for the royals, was the fact that Meghan didn't vanish. She grew louder, bigger, more visible. And that visibility came at a cost. Every time Meghan spoke, the palace had to brace itself. Every project she and Harry launched became a headline storm. Every quote was dissected for veiled references. Every public appearance turned into a subtle referendum on the monarchy. You can only live in that kind of pressure cooker for so long before someone pulls a plug. And this week, the palace did just that. Not emotionally, not reactively. Strategically, they studied the data, media trends, sentiment across demographics, cultural feedback from both sides of the Atlantic. And the conclusion was simple. The ambiguity surrounding Meghan was more damaging than any formal break. So they chose a break. From the royal institution's perspective, it was the only way forward. Especially now. Especially with King Charles's health casting uncertainty over the crown's immediate future. Because when leadership weakens, institutions turn to survival mode. That means closing the gates, reasserting order, and removing anything that feels like a loose thread. Meghan, despite her distance, was still that thread, a symbol of tension, of unresolved history, of potential instability. So they cut it, and now the monarchy is locked in a holding pattern, tightly controlled, obsessively curated, and painfully aware that every decision is being judged through a 21st century lens. This isn't just about PR. It's about legacy, image, future relevance, and they are betting on tradition over flexibility. They always have. Segment, photos, but here's the twist. In doing so, they've also made Meghan more powerful in a way. Because when an institution as big as the British monarchy publicly closes a door on you, it validates everything you said on the way out. To her supporters, this isn't a defeat. It's confirmation. It proves that the institution was never built to include someone like Meghan, that it couldn't stretch far enough to adapt to her identity, her independence, or her version of public life. And now, the palace has said the quiet part out loud. Meghan doesn't belong, not even in theory. That's a brutal message, but it's also one that brings clarity. There's no more pretending, no more speculation, no more polite nods or awkward invitations to royal events that keep the illusion of civility alive. This is a break. Sharp, clean, final. Segment, photos, and as painful as that may be for all parties involved, it's also freeing. Meghan and Harry can now move forward without the chains of what if. They no longer have to answer questions about potential reconciliations, about roles they no longer hold, about a future that never really existed. The monarchy has spelled it out for them. That chapter is over. For the royals, the decision removes a persistent media distraction. But it also sends a deeper message. There are limits to inclusion, lines that can't be crossed. And if you cross them, intentionally or not, you don't get to return. The monarchy isn't interested in negotiating identity. It wants order, control, silence. And Meghan brought none of those things. Segment, UKIA photos. So the question becomes, what now? For the palace, it's business as usual, at least on the surface. But beneath that polished exterior, they know this decision will resonate for years. It's not just about excluding one person. It's about what kind of monarchy the institution is choosing to be in the modern world. For Meghan and Harry, it's uncharted territory. They are no longer royals, not even adjacent. They are now public figures with royal history, but no royal status. And that's a complicated space to occupy. But it's also space that's entirely theirs. No expectations, no restrictions, just freedom. The kind they fought for, now delivered, not as a gift, but as a consequence. Where they go from here, that's the next chapter. And whether you see this as justice, self-preservation, or a generational failure, it's a moment that will define the monarchy's trajectory for years to come. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Share this with someone who's been glued to this saga, and make sure you're subscribed. Because if you think this is the end, it's not. It's just the end of this battle. The war for narrative, legacy, and power, that's still very much underway.